Hello everyone, thank you for joining me for another tutorial using an Affinity photo. For this one, we're going to take this image of me. This is a self-portrait that I did tonight. We're going to take this image and we're going to make it pop, add a lot of color grading to it, and give it just a little bit of an edge. So, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go to Filters, Sharpen, and I'm going to add just a small sharpening mask for it. 1 pixel with a factor of 1, hit apply. And if we go in and hit Control Z, we'll see before, and Control Y after. You can just see a lot of that skin texture. From there, we are going to go to the tone mapping persona. I absolutely love tone mapping. You can overdo it in tone mapping. You can get such an amazing look out of the tone mapping persona. It can take a while depending on your computer. Just sit back and enjoy. Take a sip of coffee. There we go. And right off the bat, you do have all these presets that come with Affinity Photo. But we're going to do just a simple one. Tone compression, I don't want that much contrast. I'm going to drop it down to about 10%. And local contrast, this is the one that I really like playing around with. I'm going to drop it to about 25%. Wait a minute. Okay. I backed out. One thing I like to do before going into tone mapping is hit Control J. No, not Control U. Control J. And duplicate my background. Because once you go into tone mapping persona, it will override your original layer. So always duplicate, or you should duplicate, in my opinion, the background layer before going to tone mapping. So click the top layer, the duplicated layer, hit tone map it again. And we sit back and wait, take a sip of our coffee one more time. And we're in. Go back up. Tone compression, again, drop that down to 10%. Local contrast, we're going to drop that up to 25%. Really pulls out that detail. If you keep going past 25, 50%, you really get this HDR type look. For portraits, it's not always the best because it does bring out a lot of the texture in the skin. It can make these dark splotches all over it. But if you do it sparingly, like I said, 25% is what I like to do, just to really get more of a pop out of your photo. Looks good, but I really want that contrast bumped up. So for my brightness, I'm dropping that all the way up to 25%. And my black point, I really want a dark, edgy photo from this. Five's probably too much. 4, 3, 4, 3. It's amazing how much 1% can really change the photo. But I think I'm going to go with 3%. We're going to have more opportunities to change the contrast on this photo here in a little bit. Everything else I'm just going to leave alone because we're going to adjust the coloring here in just a minute. So as I said before, if you use the tone mapping persona, it replaces that background. So please duplicate before going to your tone mapping. So even comparing that to the original, you have a huge difference in that one persona. Absolutely love it. Because I still want to get it to pop a little bit more, I'm going to scroll all the way up to my levels. And here you get a nice histogram. This image really is dark heavy, but that's fine with me. But I am going to drop the highlights down to really get the highlights to pop a little bit more. Obviously, the more you do, it's pretty much where's your highest brightness point. I'm going to do it at 90%. 89, close enough. So you really get that nice pop, that nice contrast with it. After that, we're going to go to our color balance. Color balance, I highly recommend, if you have the time, if you care enough, to use color balance instead of just going to white balance. White balance, you just have your blue and yellow and your green and magenta for everything. But if you go to color balance, not only do you have both of those again, but you also have the cyan and red, and you can also affect the shadows, midtones, or highlights specifically, giving you a lot more control instead of just putting, you know, a yellow filter on the whole image. We're going to delete that. You can now say, all right, I want my highlights more yellow, but I want my shadows more blue. And you're not affecting the midtones, you're not affecting the highlights, anything. Absolutely love color balance. But we're going to go back in. I like starting in the shadows and then working on highlights on top of that. And then midtones I like hitting last, because midtones I use to balance the shadows and the highlights together. For this image, I do want more of a red, gritty image. So I'm going to drop those to red. I don't want that blue. It's a little bit too much red on my face, but we're going to work on that here a little bit anyway. Go up to the highlights. I'm going to drop it up more towards the blue, but I still want to keep it close to that yellow, closer to an orange. I'm going to move it way more towards the cyan, just to help create that contrast between that blue and the red background. Blue highlights, red background, looking good. In midtones, this will affect parts of my face along with the background, so I don't want a completely red or completely blue face. When it comes to this subtlety, obviously you don't want to go all the way over, but just finding that nice little sweet spot. So there you go. We just hit shadows, highlights, and midtones. All separately. Complete control for everything. Highly recommend it. We can select all that and go back to our original image. Really flat, really dark. And this one already pops. Now to get into a little bit of a color grade area, we're going to select Add Pixel Layer. Go to our Flood Fill tool. And it really doesn't matter what color you add right now. I'm going to start with like a dark gold color. But I'm going to show you why the color you pick really doesn't matter a whole lot. So select that layer and you have a giant gold layer. Covers up everything. We are going to use this gear option right here, blend ranges. Click on that. For this layer, we're going to use it as an overlay to help blend all those colors in. We're going to give everything this dark gold tint. I want the skin color to stay the color that I already selected for it. So I'm going to drop down, and this circle controls all your dark, your blacks, and this circle controls all your highlights, and obviously your midtones are right here. We're going to drop the midtones down a little bit more, and you can see everything on that image underneath that's going to be affected. I don't want it to affect the skin. Background, the clothing, everything else is going to have this nice little color grade with it. I do suggest you click the linear box right here. I don't want straight lines. I want it to be a nice gradual curve. So just drop that down. And you can change it to your heart's content, but I think right here, skin right there is untouched, but that shadow around my face is going to have that nice orange glow to it, matching it with the background and with the clothing. I'm okay with that. So now that we have that done, we're going to go down to overlay, I'm not the biggest fan of this color right here, the before and after. I do want it more red, but this one's just kind of, I don't like the how red it's actually popping through. It looks very, you know, I don't like it. But instead of going through here and trying just to add more colors and seeing what they're gonna do, definitely no. We can add an HSL layer. So go to your adjustments, add HSL, and then we're going to drag that into that gold layer that we made. From here, we can change the color and we can change the saturation. We can even change the brightness of that layer as well. So instead of creating a whole new layer or, you know, trial and erroring image or different colors, you can just add an HSL layer and drop the saturation down a little bit and find that nice color that you want. I mean, we could add purple and blues to the background and get this really nice, you know, city, urban type feel. But I do want to stick with reds. So I'm come through and I'm liking that so far. Close it out and we actually turn that yellow or green. I don't know my colors. We turn that layer green. So if you look, this is now the image using that HSL adjustment layer that we turned it to. Now for color grading, I don't mind doing two different colors. I just hit the microphone. I don't mind doing two different colors. You can get a really cool effect combining both of them. So for this layer, I'm just going to hit Control and paste. And because we already have that HSL layer, we just go through and I can find that nice red-orange color that I wanted to add before. I'm just going to drop the saturation down a little bit more. And it looks like we're back down to close to that gold color that I had before. I guess it's more brown. But without that green, you'd get this weird color. But we're going to click that green back up. I really like how this looks. And without both of those layers, we can see, again, we got green in the foreground, we got that purple along with that rusted red. Just everything looks, it doesn't really look uniform. But being able to do this and control the shadows and the midtones together with these colors, it does create a more uniform photo. I do want to make this pop a little bit more, so I'm just going to add a really quick brightness and contrast. I want the brightness up a little bit more, 5%, and then contrast 25. Maybe not that much. 15. Before, after. Yep, looks good. To get a little bit more depth into the photo, we're going to add a pixel layer, and we're going to grab our paintbrush tool. Go to brushes, and we're going to go to texture. And the one that I really like to use is grunge pattern number 5. You go into the texture group or category and hit grunge pattern number 5. I'm going to make sure my color is black. Flow, I want 100%. Hardness 80, that's fine. Opacity 100. Right and left brackets for changing the size of your paintbrush. And I'm going to go in and I'm just going to start painting in real loosely, trying to hit the background only on this layer. And then I'm going to go down and hit overlay. And because I don't want it to just look like it was painted on, even though it was painted on, I'm going to go back to that blend range, drop it down, and again, try to create that same curve. Really good in the darks, nothing in the lights, and then find that nice mid-range where it pops through. That way it doesn't look like it was painted on. Not bad. Now we're going to do that one more time, but we're going to use that same paintbrush, but I want a large brush, and I want this to go over me, not over the skin, but over the whole image. Now with this, pick and choose where you want to add it, where you want those splotches to really pop up. Don't worry too much if it goes over an area. Matches perfectly right there. If it goes over an area, we can always get our masking layer or eraser out. Like that one. If you get a paintbrush like this that you don't like, just click off of the picture and it'll go down to the next image. I like it right there. Don't worry about that on my skin. We'll delete that in a minute. Add a little bit of texture under my shirt for this one. And you can always drop down the opacity of it as well, especially when we're doing little bits like we're doing now. You got different options. We can go in, take that eraser tool, drop that opacity up. Like this, one thing I am going to do though, that skin tone is really red from what I want. Not levels, color balance. We're going to go back to the highlights. And we're just going to add it a little bit more to towards the cyan and towards the blue. So before, really red, Control Y, at least we got that blue to pop out. Last thing we're going to do is I'm going to create another layer. Get my paintbrush tool out again. Go to Basic and select just one. Just make sure the hardness is down to 0. Ooh. In color, we're going to add the color. We're going to make it white. I really do want to make my eyes pop in this photo a little bit more. Eyes really draw people into photos. It can really make an average photo look that much better. So we're going to go in and we're just going to paint over the eyes. Try to stay in, but with how we're going to do it, it doesn't matter too much. I'm going to take that eraser and just get that eyebrow a little bit more. So, looks a little weird. Not, I understand. Break that out too. But it'll all make sense. So we're going to go down and we're going to set it to overlay. And I know what you're saying. You're still saying it doesn't look right. It doesn't. I agree. But we're going to use that blend range again. Now for this, because we want to make something lighter, we don't want it to affect the darks. So we're going to take that first node and drop it all the way down, and you can see this is only affecting the light areas now. Same thing before, unclick linear, and we're going to keep those midtones down as well. So all we're really raising is the highlights. So there's before, pretty average. After, you really get that pop. If you do want to drop it down a little bit, you can always just change the opacity. I dropped it down to 90. But with the eyes, you really can get that image to pop. You can get the face to pop a little bit more, stand out. And here is the huge difference. I'm gonna actually hit Control G. Whoa, undo. We're not gonna do that. So with everything but, oh, that's why. The background selected. we're going to look at the original image again. So that is what we started with. Straight out of the camera, and we turned it into this very poppy, very dramatic, something that looks like it should be in a crime show type image, in my opinion. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I really do hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Please give a like, give a comment down below. What do you guys want to see in the future? I plan to keep doing these tutorials. I really like helping people out. I really like sharing my experience and creating a conversation where you guys can talk back and we can learn off of each other. In the future, I am planning on having more videos, not just over Affinity Photo, but over my entire process from getting a photo shoot from the camera through everything, because I use about 3 different programs for a typical shoot. I'm planning on going over camera settings, the cameras that I have, the equipment I have, lighting setup, just equipment in general, tips I've learned along the way, and of course anything that you have questions over. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and everyone have a fantastic day.